Today, we'll explore a case that occurred in the Philippines in 2021, which shocked all of Southeast Asia at the time. On December 10th, 2021, as the Maguad couple was preparing to leave for work, they suddenly heard Janice call out, "Mom! Dad!" This call deeply moved them. Janice was their adopted daughter, and this was the first time she had addressed the Maguads in this way since they had adopted her a few months earlier. They were overjoyed that their care and love had been reciprocated and acknowledged by their daughter. However, this joy would last only a few hours, as a tragedy was about to unfold in their family. At 2:48 p.m., Janice sent a message to the family chat group saying that 3 burglars had broken into their house. Shortly after, she posted a plea for help on social media. By 3 p.m., after seeing the message on Cruz Maguad's phone, one of his colleagues pushed open his office door and said worriedly, "It seems your house has been broken into. You should go check right away." Hearing this, Cruz jumped up in panic and rushed home. About 15 minutes later, Cruz arrived home by car. At this point, all he knew was that his house was being burglarized, and even more terrifying, his 3 children were all inside. When he reached the door, he realized he had left his keys at work in his haste. The front door was locked, and despite Cruz's efforts to push it open, it wouldn't budge. So, he began banging on the door and calling out the names of his 3 children. But no matter how loudly he shouted, there was no response. He then ran around the house yelling their names. Fortunately, the back door was unlocked. However, the inside of the house was eerily quiet. Cruz suddenly realized that the burglars might still be inside, holding the children hostage, which was why they couldn't respond. Therefore, he decided to keep quiet and see if he could stealthily approach and find a way to rescue the children. Cruz then tiptoed through the kitchen. But when he entered the living room, he was met with a horrifying sight. The entire room was in disarray, and a strong, nauseating smell of blood hit his nostrils. Shards of a broken vase were scattered everywhere, and the carpet was soaked in blood. His 2 children lay motionless on the floor, their bodies covered in wounds and stab marks. Beside them were a knife, a hammer, and a baseball bat. His 16-year-old son, Louis, lay dead near the front door, his body covered in blood, his hands tied, and something stuffed in his mouth. His 18-year-old daughter, Gwen, lay near the bedroom door in an even more tragic state. Her entire body was covered in wounds, especially her face, which was completely disfigured. One of her ears had even been cut off. Later reports showed that Gwen's hands and arms were full of knife wounds, indicating that she had tried to resist until the very end. Seeing this scene, Cruz fell to his knees beside his children, sobbing in agony. But after a moment, he tried to calm himself. He remembered that he still had an adopted daughter, Janice, and he needed to find her quickly. Cruz then took out his phone to call Janice while quickly running towards her room, praying that he wouldn't find another dead body. However, Janice's door was locked tight, and her phone was unreachable. Cruz kept calling out her name loudly. Then, an unexpected scene unfolded. Janice opened the door and ran towards Cruz, crying. Seeing Janice soaking wet, Cruz panicked, thinking it was blood. He quickly checked her all over. Fortunately, Janice wasn't injured at all. In her panic, Janice shakily explained to Cruz that 3 men had broken into the house to rob them. She was scared, so she hid under the bed. She heard Gwen and Louis screaming, but couldn't help. Finally, when everything went quiet, Janice didn't know what to do, so she took a shower. This explanation was clearly illogical. Cruz felt something was odd, but he thought his daughter was too frightened, so he didn't ask any more questions. After calming Janice down, Cruz called the police and informed his wife, Lavella, who was at work. The incident shocked the entire town. It was a small town where everyone knew each other. The Maguad family was known for their kindness. Cruz was a high school teacher, and Lavella was an elementary school principal. Although their teaching income wasn't high, they were financially comfortable due to inherited land and a pig farm from their grandparents. Their eldest daughter, Gwen, born in 2003, was a smart, outgoing, and energetic girl. In high school, Gwen enrolled in a pre-med program, hoping to become a doctor in the future. Their youngest son, Louis, born in 2005, loved reading, drawing, and playing guitar. Though only 16, he had clear goals and wanted to become a lawyer in the future. Their family was always harmonious and full of love. Under their parents' guidance, Gwyn and Louis were enthusiastic about participating in charitable activities. On weekends, the family often visited nursing homes and orphanages, donating to those in need. As teachers, the Maguads frequently helped poor students. It was through this kindness that they met Janice. In early 2021, the Maguad family was invited to a party. There, Gwyn noticed a housemaid who looked about her age, so she approached to introduce herself. The maid's name was Janice, a year younger than Gwyn. They quickly became close due to their shared interests. But Gwyn wondered why a 17-year-old girl wasn't in school and had to work as a maid for others. When Gwyn asked, Janice emotionally recounted her life story. She couldn't remember anything about her life before age 8. In Janice's memory, she was a child without parents. At 8, she was abandoned on a large ship like a forgotten package. Luckily, a kind person posted her photo online, hoping to find her parents. But no one recognized Janice. After that, she was taken to an orphanage. Janice lived there for 8 years, until she was 16, when a kind couple hired her as a maid, promising to pay her regularly. Although the work wasn't easy, Janice was grateful for the opportunity. At least she had a place to call home. Janice's sad story deeply moved Gwyn. The two girls began to talk frequently. Gwyn introduced Janice to many of her friends and family. Their relationship grew closer, and they became inseparable friends. After 6 months, Gwyn and her brother felt their relationship with Janice had surpassed ordinary friendship. They came up with the idea of asking their parents to adopt Janice. Gwyn, being kind-hearted, thought Janice deserved the same good education she had to pursue her dreams in the future. When they heard this suggestion from their children, the Maguad couple felt quite worried. First, since Janice was already 17, they found it difficult to know how to educate her appropriately. Second, they worried that the new environment might make Janice uncomfortable and cause new emotional wounds. So the family discussed this issue many times. It was clear that all the family's concerns stemmed from their fear of not being able to provide a better life for Janice. Finally, due to Gwyn's persistence, the Maguads decided to officially adopt Janice and provide her with educational opportunities. In July 2021, Janice moved in with her new family and changed her name to Janice Maguad. Louis gave up his room for her and moved to sleep on the living room sofa. To welcome their new member, the family organized a vacation together. During the trip, they took many photos as mementos. Janice had now become a beloved member of the family. However, this change required both sides to go through an adjustment period. In her new family, Janice had to learn to follow family rules. At the same time, the other family members needed to be more understanding and tolerant towards her. An incident occurred just a few months after Janice's adoption. It was during the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. Gwyn was busy applying for college while also tutoring Janice. At that time, Gwyn's grandparents had contracted COVID-19 and needed to be quarantined, so they needed money for food and medicine. Fortunately, Cruz had just sold some piglets and earned $200. He had put this money in a piggy bank for emergencies, but when he broke open the piggy bank to get the money, it was completely empty. Cruz asked his wife and children, but no one knew where the money had gone. They even suspected that a thief had broken in, but strangely, nothing else was missing, and someone was almost always at home. So the whole family started searching everywhere. While looking under the carpet in the room, they accidentally picked up Janice's school bag. Due to the pandemic, schools had switched to online learning. Although Janice's bag didn't have many books, it was surprisingly heavy. Upon closer inspection, they discovered a hidden compartment at the bottom of the bag, and the lost money was there. At this moment, the Maguads felt not anger but sadness and disappointment. They looked at Janice with confused eyes, hoping for an explanation. Janice cried and said, "I'm so sorry, I don't know why I did it." She understood that because of this, she would lose her parents' trust and might even be kicked out of the house. Although the Maguads felt deeply hurt, they tried to understand Janice. They believed that since she had lacked affection from a young age, she didn't have the same sense of security as Gwen and Louis. Therefore, Janice's actions likely stemmed from a psychology of deprivation, as she had once worried about where her next meal would come from. So, the Maguad family forgave Janice. Because she was now their child, they felt she needed more love and understanding. They wanted Janice to know that as long as she was part of this family, she would never have to worry about money again. However, on December 10th, everything fell apart completely. When Cruz received the call about the horrific incident, Lavella rushed home, embracing her husband and adopted daughter, sobbing outside the house. Meanwhile, the police were busy collecting evidence inside. They then interrogated Janice, the only surviving witness. She stated that she and Gwen were in their room, while Louis was in the living room. Suddenly, they heard Louis scream along with the sound of objects breaking, so they immediately ran out to see what was happening. They saw 3 strangers suddenly appear in the living room. 2 of them were beating Louis with a hammer and a baseball bat, while the third stabbed him with a knife. When they spotted Gwen and Janice, they rushed towards them and caught Gwen. Taking advantage of her sister's struggle, Janice ran into the room and hid under the bed. During this time, she sent a distress message to the family chat group and posted a plea for help on social media. Janice also recounted that although the robbers later came into the room to look for her, they fortunately didn't discover her hiding under the bed. This case puzzled the Philippine police. Despite abundant evidence at the scene, they still couldn't understand the full sequence of events. First, the front door was locked from the inside and showed no signs of forced entry. Second, nothing in the house was missing, which clearly didn't fit the scenario of a robbery-homicide. Upon inspection, the police found that Janice's bed was clearly visible upon entering the room, so if the robbers had really entered, they couldn't have missed seeing her. By December 13th, when the autopsy results came in, the case became even more perplexing. Both victims had died from excessive blood loss, but before being stabbed to death, they had endured extremely brutal beatings. Gwen, in particular, had her face cut with a knife to the point of being unrecognizable. Experts suggested that this behavior usually stems from jealousy or hatred. As for Louis, he had been stabbed 51 times. If this was really the act of robbers, why would they be so brutal to 2 children? These wounds seemed more like an act of venting anger than covering up evidence. Moreover, according to further investigation, Gwen had been killed before Louis, which clearly didn't match Janice's testimony. Additionally, forensic doctors determined that the siblings were murdered around 2 p.m., while the time Janice posted her plea for help was at 2:48 p.m. Furthermore, Janice's distress message also seemed odd. In such a dire situation, she still remembered to add emojis to her message, which was very strange. Not only that, but the presence of the murder weapons at the scene was also illogical. The hammer and baseball bat were actually belongings of the Maguad family. The hammer was Cruz's tool for repairing things, and he usually kept it in a drawer in the laundry room. He was certain that only Gwen, Janice, and he knew where the hammer was kept. The baseball bat belonged to Louis, and it was usually kept on the top bunk in his bedroom, which was now Janice's room. Typically, burglars who break into homes bring their own weapons or use easily visible objects as weapons. But these 2 items were clearly not something that strangers could easily find on their first visit to the house. Immediately after the incident, Janice posted a memorial for Gwen and Louis on social media, which quickly received much sympathy. However, shocking discoveries were made shortly after when investigating her social media accounts. It turned out that Janice wasn't an orphan, and she had even been in contact with her birth mother through social media over the years. Many years ago, after her parents divorced, her father left their 5 children in the mother's care. In difficult circumstances, her mother was forced to let the children fend for themselves. After entering the orphanage, Janice went through many hardships before finally being adopted by the Maguad family. Her birth mother was aware of this at the time. This information quickly reached the Maguads. However, as the police were still investigating the case, they maintained a polite and compassionate attitude, imploring people not to make malicious speculations since Janice was still under 18. While rumors were spreading, the police also expanded their investigation. Soon after, they discovered a bag of blood-soaked women's clothes carefully wrapped in the drainage of the stream behind the Maguad house. The bloodstains on the clothes were confirmed to be from Gwyn and Louis, while the clothes belonged to Janice. The final breakthrough in the case was discovered by Lavella. After losing her 2 children, Lavella was in extreme pain. To control her sadness and avoid breaking down, she tried to keep herself busy by meticulously cleaning the entire house. While cleaning Janice's room, Lavella discovered a strange ID card and immediately turned it over to the police. It was the ID of a 17-year-old teenager named Marlon. Although Lavella had never met this teenager, her neighbors had seen him. Many witnesses stated that they had seen Marlon heading towards the Maguad house on the day of the incident. A store owner even confirmed that Marlon had come into his store and asked which house belonged to the Maguad family. Another motorcycle driver also reported that he had given Marlon a ride there. Faced with this crucial evidence, the police immediately interrogated Janice. Under pressure, she admitted to knowing Marlon. He was a friend she had met while working at the church. In the presence of a lawyer, Janice also confessed that she and Marlon were responsible for killing Gwyn and Louis. The police immediately arrested Marlon and Janice. Moreover, they found Gwyn's phone in his backpack. Although Marlon and Janice were arrested, their motive remained a mystery. During questioning, Marlon stated that on the day of the incident, he saw his girlfriend's plea for help on social media. He immediately called Janice, but when the call connected, there was only silence on the other end. After a few seconds of silence, he hung up, assuming it might be a joke from his girlfriend. This explanation seemed strange. Either the man was incredibly insensitive, or he was too accustomed to such dramatic acts from his girlfriend. Otherwise, it's hard to understand how someone could see such a post and not be concerned, especially from their own girlfriend. During interrogation, Janice admitted she was very jealous of Gwyn. Gwyn was both smart and beautiful and had been loved by many since childhood, while Janice had nothing. Perhaps on the very morning of the incident, when Janice first called the Maguad's mom and dad, she decided she would become their only child and monopolize their love. Later, police found messages on Janice's phone sent to Marlon after her adoption, stating she wanted to kill 7 people, though she didn't specify who these 7 were. On December 16, 2021, Janice and Marlon were placed in a juvenile detention center. The case entered a prolonged trial phase. During this time, the Maguads held a funeral for their 2 unfortunate children. Surprisingly, Janice's birth mother appeared at the funeral. She knelt before the Maguads to apologize for her daughter's actions. By May 2022, Janice was sentenced to 32 years in prison for premeditated murder, while Marlon received a 29-year sentence, both without possibility of parole. However, as they were both minors, they would officially begin serving their sentences at age 21. This verdict outraged the Maguads and many Filipino citizens. In fact, Lavella had once considered forgiving Janice due to her religious beliefs. But during her detention, Janice showed no signs of remorse or regret. Many people believed that the negligence of Janice's birth parents and social welfare agencies had turned her into a monster, ultimately causing tragedy for the Maguad family. After Gwyn and Louis's deaths, the Maguads frequently visited their children's graves on holidays and anniversaries. Lavella soon returned to school to continue her educational work. In August 2022, Cruz opened a restaurant serving Gwyn and Louis's favorite dishes to honor their memory. And that's the story for today. What are your thoughts on this case? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.